Once again, you are listening to the Paul McGUIRE Report. I'm Paul McGUIRE. Wherever you are in the USA, wherever you are on planet Earth, welcome to the Paul McGUIRE Report. Again, as always, we will continue to take a deep dive into truth and subject matters that a lot of people just gloss over. Okay, so I want to go into the topic of beyond disclosure. So there's a lot of talk, there's a crescendo of blabbing voices in the mainstream media and in the alternative media concerning disclosure. The idea, the concept that the U.S. government, the United Nations, and other powers that be have some kind of exhaustive secret files, video files, audio files, photographic files, and wreckage of UFOs crashing into planet Earth, and actual ETs, extraterrestrial creatures, that they have them alive and they have skeletons. Okay, so I'm not here to comment on that. I would say that the chance is very likely that there is a whole bunch of that stuff hidden away in the secret vaults of the Smithsonian Institute or wherever they store this stuff. So the probability is very high that there's an exhaustive amount of files, millions and millions of files on the subject of ETs, UFOs, etc., etc. And so it certainly is a realistic expectation on behalf of the public. It's a realistic expectation to want to gain access to the files, because people know this is one of the most popular subjects in the world and in America. People want to know what's really going on with the whole alien UFO ET thing. They want to know, are ETs and aliens real, for crying out loud? People really want to know that. And if they're real, have they visited planet Earth now and in the past? And then they want the whole thing, man. They want to know everything about it. And they believe, correctly, I think their assumption is valid, they believe that the government has vast storage of secret files and relics and things like that. And I would suppose that they do have all that stuff. But on this program, we're going to go beyond the mere topic of disclosure, because disclosure, if we're going to define disclosure as the federal government, the military, the intelligence agencies in America, the UN, and around the world are going to open up or declassify all their hidden stuff, all their hidden files, so that the American public can get down to the real nitty-gritty of what actually did happen and what actually did not happen regarding UFOs. Okay? So that's the general definition of what people are expecting in disclosure. However, as I've been talking about for a long time in my books, and others have too, this whole topic of disclosure is not just the one-dimensional scenario I gave you, as important as that is and as mind-blowing that could be. The whole area of disclosure has to be redefined properly, so that disclosure not only encompasses the traditional expectations regarding disclosure, but disclosure also encompasses all the stuff, all the subjects that are basically taboo, all the subjects that are secretly heavy-duty classified, all the not only the target questions, the deeper, bigger questions. So let me give you a couple of examples. Let's define ET. Okay, so there's no agreement at the present moment as to what exactly an ET or an extraterrestrial is. So we need an expanded definition. So what do I mean by that? Well, going back to 1947, 1948 in Roswell, New Mexico, when apparently a UFO crashed into the desert and alien body allegedly was recovered, etc., etc. There were many people who made assumptions, who were famous scientists who did big time research into the area of UFOs. So, and then there's the endless amount of UFO abductee experiences, seeing craft, seeing motherships, on and on and on. I had the privilege of being one of the guest experts in a special video that L.A. Marzulli did a number of years ago, and most of you know his name. I've spoken at many conferences with him, and I generally think he's right on the way he handles the topics of aliens and UFOs and the Bible. So I did an interview for that video, which was rewarding and insightful. You can get it, by the way, if you go to L.A. Marzulli's website and just look for ones that were done. I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago, and then it'll have the guests. Or just type in Paul McGUIRE, UFOs, ET, L.A. Marzulli in Google search or whatever, and that'll come right up. So that was an insightful program. In addition to that, L.A. showed me at that time, it was just cutting edge information. And he showed me video of footage and video that was taken with a special night vision cell phone. So any cell phone at that time, I don't know what the current status is, but any cell phone at that time that had night vision technology, like some cameras, some video recorders, some cameras, lots of equipment has had or has currently operating in it night vision technology. So it can, it gives a green appearance, but it can see into the dark. The night vision is a military adapted technology. So LA was showing me video footage that he and his producer and a number of other people had shot, and it was quite interesting because when you use the night vision part of the camera, you could see these UFO looking objects or UFO type objects descending from the upper levels of the sky, like they were coming down into the earth. And they weren't coming, these UFO object, whatever they were, technologies were coming down out of the sky and were landing on planet Earth. And they had the appearance of like a UFO craft. Now, what was interesting about it is if you didn't have night vision technology, you would look up and you'd see absolutely nothing. So this UFO craft that LA was showing me, you had to have night vision. But what was interesting was the structure of the different craft, and the footage he showed me was footage that he and his producer had shot very recently at the time, but he also had videos from all around the world of these UFO craft descending. Not only descending, but they were coming up from the earth, ascending. So we had descending UFOs, apparently they were UFOs, descending UFOs and ascending UFOs. But you had to have night vision. And when these craft, for lack of a better word, were descending or ascending, they did so in like a military Air Force type formation. In other words, they flew their craft in formation. And I don't remember what the exact mathematics of the formation was, but as these UFOs descended, they weren't just scattered across the sky. They were flying, descending in formation, in a specific formation. And in the other videos he showed me of ascending UFO type videos, and those shot from around the world, the same flight formation was occurring. So whatever this thing, and I'm very skeptical, you know, and I was polite to LA, and I essentially agree. I mean, I basically agree with what he's suggesting. But I'm skeptical about it. I was skeptical then, I'm still skeptical. Not to whether or not UFOs exist. I think that's a no-brainer. That of course they exist. But what were those crafts? So I had to make sure in my own mind that these descending and ascending UFO type objects, that they couldn't be explained away by some kind of EMF, electromagnetic frequency glitch in the atmosphere, something caused by, you know, you can, when you have a lot of high-powered electronic equipment and you're scanning under the earth, or you're scanning into the atmosphere or the skies, or you're scanning underwater or wherever you're scanning, when you're using the high-powered electronic detection devices, they can often produce strange shapes and formations that wouldn't necessarily mean it was a UFO, but it's kind of a frequency glitch, if you will. So I had to be sure in my own mind that what I was looking at wasn't a frequency glitch. And after spending some time with them, I was convinced that it wasn't just a frequency glitch. There was something to this. And then the other thing I had to really check out in my brain, if you will, I had to be certain that what I was looking at wasn't some kind of false flag or PSYOP, psychological operations, military deception. In other words, I'm speaking purely hypothetical. I'm not suggesting that that was the case, but I'm suggesting that when you do a thorough examination of something, you should approach it with a certain amount of skepticism. So I wanted to make sure that this wasn't an artificial reality or a synthetic reality or some kind of projection from some kind of technology into the atmosphere to create a synthetic or virtual reality UFO ascending and UFOs descending. I had to make sure it wasn't being staged by some nefarious interest that wanted to ignite hysteria, chaos, crisis, and kind of like a national UFO panic for ulterior motives. So I had to be clear and sure in my own mind that this was the real deal. And so I've continued over the years to check in on this topic because it's a constantly moving topic. And this whole thing about Operation Bluebeam, which I've written about over the years, I've checked this out, and I've written books on it, by the way. A number of my books deal extensively with a secret military project known as Operation Bluebeam. And Operation Bluebeam is a sector of psychological warfare. And Operation Bluebeam specifically uses various electromagnetic frequency technologies and many other cutting-edge technologies, some that are not even known to the population. But the ability of a government, an intelligence agency, a military, or whoever that wants to, that has a powerful enough scientific branch to its society. We are now in a time period where it is now possible to create exquisitely hyper-realistic, lifelike three-dimensional images where you cannot distinguish the images that you see in the sky or in a street or underwater or above the water or whatever. You can't distinguish between what is real and what is what you could call an electronic illusion. And most people don't know. Most people have seen things like CGI, which represents lifelike special effects. But there are all these new AI technologies that can produce holographic images, lifelike images of beings, entities, gods, UFOs, aliens, you name it. Anything you want to produce and project into the sky, it no longer has that funky, science fiction B-movie special effects vibe to it. It's totally realistic. But people don't even know that this technology is out there. So if the time comes that any government on planet Earth or anything like the United Nations on planet Earth decides to flip the switch on a massive global Operation Bluebeam, where a number of artificial scenarios could play out. One is you could have a full-fledged alien invasion with hundreds of UFOs descending upon the Earth, a giant UFO mothership hovering in the upper atmosphere, actual ETs or aliens landing the UFOs, and the ETs and the aliens are moving physically out of their UFOs and into the physical surfaces of Earth. And they could be armed or they could be unarmed. And this can happen anytime somebody wants it, just the flip of an electronic switch. So what you have done is you've created this massive theater in the sky. A massive theater in the sky in which billions of people will all gather together simultaneously, and they will be spellbound as they're looking into the sky and they see this totally realistic, totally hyper-realistic, totally lifelike alien invasion descending down upon them in UFOs, motherships, along with aliens and ETs, and then alien spacecraft, alien underwater craft, all kinds of things. Blasts from high-powered lasers. I mean, it is impossible to describe, and I don't want to use adjectives to describe it, which portray a false, almost a worshipful sense of the scenario. I don't want to do that, but at the same time, we need to understand that with current technology, an Operation Bluebeam could come about with incredible technological wonder a dazzling technological display that you couldn't tell, that billions of people would be unable to distinguish this electronic digital AI fantasy in the skies from the real thing.